Former Vice President Mike Pence, President Biden, former President Trump, all have been under investigation for their handling of classified documents. The difference with Trump's case is the allegation of obstruction. Talk about the significance of this ruling by Judge Aileen Cannon.
This ruling, good morning, everyone. This ruling, it is extremely significant. I mentioned to many people last week that the Judge Aileen Cannon, who is overseeing this case, she hadn't had any updates in at least 6 days. And now we're going to tack on an entire weekend on it. And then here we are on this Monday morning, a huge decision from the judge. There were a few things that the judge had to consider. There were things that were already on her calendar to kind of figure out how this case would move along. But then there was this big overarching issue of dismissing this case on this matter on if Jack Smith, the special prosecutor in this case, the special counsel, if he was properly appointed. And some people saw that as a long shot. And here we are. Judge Aileen Cannon is agreeing with the former president and the arguments that his attorneys have made that he was not properly appointed. And because of that, she has decided today that she will be dismissing this case. Remember, this is something that has been going on just for maybe just about a year. We were all in Miami when the former president made his initial appearance. And we were going through the process of all of the details of this particular matter. And here we are now. I just messaged someone who works in that district, a former federal prosecutor, and I had one word for them. I said, thoughts? And the person said, she will be reversed. We know that Judge Aileen Cannon has been reversed by the appellate court that oversees her district court before in matters regarding former President Trump. Early on in this case, she made a particular judgment, and some people have described it as the circuit, the 11th Circuit, slapping her and reversing her. That is how some legal experts have described this. Nonetheless, this is a significant development. And I must also let you guys know, I want to remind you, it was 2 weeks ago where we were all outside the U.S. Supreme Court waiting for that presidential immunity case. And Justice Clarence Thomas, in one of his writings, he hinted at the possibility that the special counsel did not have the authority to bring this case whatsoever. So while everyone else was focusing on the major ruling in that particular presidential immunity case that's based out of Washington, D.C., folks who read through that document also picked up on the fact that Justice Clarence Thomas had doubts that this special counsel had the authority to bring this case in the first place. And here we are. Judge Aileen Cannon undoubtedly may have seen what Judge Clarence Thomas wrote and is perhaps using that to justify this particular ruling. It is a very significant ruling, and we were waiting to see what Judge Tanya Chutkan in that totally separate case in Washington, D.C., the January 6th case, what she would do. When would she start to put things back on her calendar? Because remember, the guidance from the U.S. Supreme Court was for her to go through a series of hearings to figure out what is considered an official act by former President Donald Trump and what is considered an unofficial act. Now we have to see how this particular decision from Judge Aileen Cannon, someone who is her colleague because they're both federal district court judges, how that particular decision may or may not affect the decision that Judge Tanya Chutkan decides to make as she moves forward. I have been speaking with some people on that matter in Washington, D.C. We're all standing by and waiting to see exactly when things will start to pop up there. There is a possibility, though, that what has happened in today's ruling could potentially affect what Judge Tanya Chutkan decides to do and how she decides to move forward.
Wow, so a ripple effect.
Yeah,
that would be
crazy.
Huge.
Abijoy, and listen, you're so well versed in this stuff and know all these cases, and thanks for hopping on the phone during obviously a major breaking news event. In layman's speak, though, help us and our viewers understand why, in the view of this judge, that Jack Smith's appointment is unconstitutional. What is the problem she finds with him prosecuting this case?
Some of the arguments that have been made by the attorney for the former president is Jack Smith did not go through a traditional confirmation process. He didn't go on Capitol Hill. He didn't have an up or down vote by majority of the lawmakers there. And because of that, they feel as if he does not have the authority to move forward with this process. And then there is also the issue of if the funding that he's getting is constitutional or not. I believe, as you know, this is just coming in, I believe the judge did make some reference on that. She said, but the court need not address the proper remedy for that funding violation given the dismissal on appointments clause grounds. So she didn't even look at the issue on the funding of Jack Smith's office and the investigation that has been going on. She's just looking at how he was appointed and the fact that there has been an argument that he was improperly appointed. And because he was not properly appointed, he does not have the authority to even bring forth this indictment against the former president altogether. Do you know, what's also very important here, I have to go back and read through all of this and look at all the details. But remember, there are two other people who are named on this indictment. And we have to see if this too affects them. I am inclined to say it may affect them, but I have to read through and kind of refresh my memory on if they joined on to this motion for the allegations and the indictment against them to also be dismissed. If they in fact joined on to that, that means that this could also be a win for them as well. You know, the court system moves slowly. In many instances, judges are very concerned about being overruled by the higher courts above them. So the process that we've seen in the last year, it's rather fast compared to other federal cases. With officials I've spoken with, they have told me that this sort of case with such a high-profile figure, something that is so unprecedented, could take years to move through the system. So the fact that we're here at this point, it's not unusual for things to take this long. So we have to see exactly what the higher court, the appellate court, will say with regards to this decision that Judge Aileen Cannon has revealed to the public. Another major breaking news, and we're just at Monday.
And Avajoy, if the Justice Department were to win on appeal, how would the case move forward? Would it go before a different judge?
It all depends on what the appellate court says. There could be a possibility that they give certain pieces of guidance on how this could move forward, but traditionally, someone will always have the ability to appeal beyond that federal appeals court all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. And this is why it goes back to the fact that these cases usually take such a long time, because there are all of these processes to, number one, ensure that the judges and the legal justice system is working appropriately, and that is why things take a long time. So there's a possibility that even if the appellate court says, hey, lower court, you were wrong, depending on who wins or loses in the appellate court, that could then be moved up all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And just to give you guys some context here, we're talking about all of these cases that involve the former president. Think about the Georgia case, that state case, a totally different court system. But everything is pretty much on hold there right now. And what had to happen while the appeals process in that particular case works its way through? Rob mentioned this earlier, but remember, there was an argument that the district attorney, Fonnie Willis, should be disqualified from being a part of this case because of the relationship that she had with the special counsel, special prosecutor that she hired. With that particular case, everything is on hold, and we won't have a hearing for another few weeks. So that gives you an idea of how things really get dragged out in the appellate process.